I found it there. Okay.
Hey.
Zion, no, Vav Gimel.
Vav Gimel, yeah.
No, Vav Gimel. The logic would have dictated that if the first testimony, which does not render her permanently forbidden, cannot be established by less than 2 witnesses, then the last testimony, which does render her permanently forbidden, should certainly not be established by less than 2 witnesses. But the Torah teaches, and there was none to testify against her, any manner of testimony which there may be against her. Now the logic of the Kal V'Chomer dictates in regard to the first testimony that the last testimony, which does not render her permanently forbidden, can yet be established by 1 witness, then the first testimony, which does not render her permanently forbidden, should certainly be established by 1 witness. But the Torah teaches, for he found in her some immoral matter, and over there it says, by the testimony of 2 witnesses shall a matter be established. Just as over there it is testimony of 2 witnesses, here too it is by the testimony of 2 witnesses. If one witness was defiled, and another says
one witness says she was defiled.
Yeah, you're right. If one witness says she was defiled and another says she was not defiled, or one woman says she was defiled and another says she was not defiled, she drinks. If one says she was defiled and 2 says she was not defiled, she drinks. If 2 say she was defiled and 1 says she was not defiled, she does not drink. These may be said in any language. The biblical passages of the Sotah, the vow of the tithes, the recitation of Shema, prayer, the grace after meals, the oath of testimony, and the oath of the deposit. It's very strange that in here, the one before that, 2 say she was defiled and 1 say she was not defiled. But on the other things, they have to go by 2 witnesses, and here they go by 1. You know what I'm saying?
No. Where do you say it goes by 1? So, yeah, we're just talking about if there are contradictory witnesses. If they're contradictory witnesses, and we're not even talking about kosher witnesses, because obviously if you've got 2 kosher witnesses, they're going to override it. You wouldn't need a Mishna to teach you that. But what it's teaching you is that if you have 2 non-kosher witnesses, like 2 avadim,
right,
and come and say she was, if it's 2 against 1, 2 avadim versus 1, then you go by the majority of them to say whether she was defiled or not, right? It's not, she's not going to be sentenced to death on the basis of their testimony, but because you have kosher edim to the stira, kosher edim who saw that she was secluded, so now a single witness or a partial witness is accepted to say, okay, she's not going to drink. And Mimela, once she's not going to drink, she loses a kesubah. She's divorced and she loses a kesubah.
Okay.
Okay, and in that particular situation, that's where we go by a majority. We say if you have 2 witnesses saying yes and 1 no, then we believe the 2 witnesses, whatever they're saying. Okay. Mishnah base, having Mishnah Aleph said just listed the things that can be said in any language. Now we have the things that we are makbid that have to be said in Lashon HaKodesh. Mikra Bikurim. Right, what we have in Parshas Kisavo and in Haggadah, Arami Oved Avi. Okay, that whole parsha has to be said in Lashon HaKodesh. And if somebody, and we'll see later that if somebody doesn't know how to say it, then they call and say to him, Arami, Oved Avi. You know, so they can say it properly. Okay. The more chalitza. When a woman has to release herself from Yibum, she has a certain formula that she has to say. What we'll see over here is that all these things over here are ritual obligations that have to be said in according to a certain formula, whereas the things in the previous Mishnah are either are practical things where you're saying something, I understand it, or a declaration of faith or a prayer to Hashem. Those are things that you ideally want to understand. But these are ritual things in our Mishnah now. Brachos v'klalos, the things that what the Leviim said on Har Grizim and Har Eval. Birkas Kohanim, Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, must be said in Lashon HaKodesh. Birkas Kohen Gadol. What's the Birkas Kohen Gadol? That's on what he says on Yom Kippurim at the end of the Avodah. Okay, Parshas HaMelech. That's the Hakel every 7 years.
Right.
Okay. Let's make sure I got that one right. Hakel. Parshas Egla Arufa. Right? When we have the Eglah Rufa, we have a certain passage that has to be said. Mashuach milchama b'shashu medaber el ha'am. And when the nation is going to war, and you've got the Kohen, who's the Mashuach milchama, giving the encouragement to the soldiers, that also is said in a ritual formula in Lashon HaKodesh. Okay, now we're going to do a deep dive onto each of these things that we mentioned, explaining how it is that we know that these things have to be said in Lashon HaKodesh and cannot just be said in any language that people understand. Mikra Bikurim Ketzad. Okay, so Arami Oved Avi, how do we know that has to be said in Lashon HaKodesh? It says in the pasuk, V'anisa v'amarta lifnei Hashem Elokecha, and you should answer. V'anisa, the key word over here is v'anisa. You should answer and say. Okay. Halan. Okay, so what does anisa mean? How do we know that that proves anything? It says later, Halan hu omer v'anu haLeviyim v'amru, and it also says by the Leviyim that they should also answer according to what Moshe is saying. Okay. Ma aniya hamor halan b'lashon hakodesh afkan b'lashon hakodesh. So since the Leviyim we know they must say their formula in Lashon HaKodesh, and therefore the Gezerah Shava of the word Aniya, Anisa, that's an indication that when you see Anisa, that means that it's talking in Lashon HaKodesh. Okay, so your question, what's your obvious question? How do you know that the Leviyim have to be in Lashon HaKodesh?
Oh.
Okay, so the Gemara has to explain this, because it's not a Farish in the Mishnah. The Gemara explains that we learn again another Gezerah Shava from Kol from Moshe, right? Because in the brachas and talis of the Leviyim it says V'amru el Kol Ish Yisrael Kol Ram, and they should say to all of Israel in a Kol Ram, right, using the word Kol. And in Matan Torah it says Moshe Yedaber v'ha'elokim Yanenu v'Kol. So when Hashem spoke to people on Har Sinai, that was the call. Now, okay, just one thing that we're not going to have any doubt is that Hashem spoke to the people in Lashon HaKodesh. So we're talking about Bakol over there, then the Leviyim were talking Bakol for sure in Lashon HaKodesh. Also, just practically, I'm not sure how they could have done it in any other language, because the Leviyim are meant to be saying everything together. How they're going to coordinate it is everyone's just saying it, one in Egyptian and one in Yiddish and whatever. They're all saying it in Lashon HaKodesh, but that's just my own sort of power over there.
I don't think Yiddish was that old.
So you see, our chain of dependency is that if Hashem spoke to people in Lashon HaKodesh, then from Kol Elokim it goes to the Kol of the Leviyim. Then now that we know the Leviyim are doing it, we have Aniya, Anisa ve'amarta. So as soon as we see Aniya in any pasuk, we understand that this must be in Lashon HaKodesh. Okay, so then we carry on this principle in Mishnah Dalet for Chalitza. Chalitza ketzad v'anasa v'amra. She must answer and say Anisa v'anasa v'amra. So then again, there again is the Lashon Anisa. V'lahalan hu amer v'anu haLeviyim v'amru. And once again, we tie that back to the Leviyim that they answered and say Ma aniya hamor lahalan b'lashon hakodesh afkan b'lashon hakodesh. Okay, so also with Chalitza, she has a certain formula that she needs to say. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, the Anasavi Amra Kacha. Now he learns it differently. Rabbi Yehuda says that if you look at the pasuk of Chalitza, it says the Anasavi Amra Kacha, and she should say Kacha. Kacha, not in quotes, but Kacha. She should say exactly these words. Ad shetomar b'lashon hazeh. She must use it in exactly these words. Actually, the pasuk is Kacha yeyaseh le'ish asher lo yibneh es beis achiv. Right, that this is what shall be done to. You remember, she's spitting in front of him. So that actually is inside quotation marks at kacha, but Rabbi Yehuda is taking a drasha on this and saying that the kacha is that she has to say it in exactly these words, and all the rest of the chachamim are saying, man, that's inside the quotes. You've got Anisa. Why do you need to learn from anyone else? Everyone agrees that the Yavama has to say the word, the Lashon HaBakar, the Lashon HaKodesh.
And she doesn't know the Hebrew, then someone says it.
Then she's in front of a Beis Din. The Beis Din will help her to say it.
Right.
Okay, that's finished. Nice.
Okay. I didn't know that they spoke Yiddish at Mount. Oh, wait, okay. All agree that he cannot stipulate with her concerning the time before she was betrothed or the time after she will have been divorced. If she secluded herself that she had been divorced and became defiled and then remarried her, he remarried her, he could not stipulate with her concerning this. This is the rule. Any incident in which even if she had cohabitated, she would not be prohibited to him. He cannot stipulate with her concerning it. He took her mincha offering out of the Egyptian basket, put it in a service vessel, and placed it in her hand. The Kohen placed his hand beneath hers and waved it. And he waved it and brought it near the altar, removed the chametz and burned it. And the remainder was eaten by the Kohanim. He first gave her to drink and then offered her mincha offering. Reb Shimon says he offered her mincha offering and then gave her to drink, as it is stated, and afterwards he shall give the women the waters to drink. But if he gave her to drink and afterwards offered her mincha offering, it is valid.
All right. Yud Hey.
A Bulgaris who has waited 12 months or a widow 30 days, what Eliezer says, since her husband is responsible for her sustenance, he can revoke her nedarim, and the comments say, however, say a husband cannot revoke her nedarim until she has entered his authority. A woman awaiting a yavam, whether one yavam or two yavamim, Rabbi Eliezer says he may revoke her nedarim, but Rabbi Yeshua says when she awaits one, but not two. Rabbi Akiva says neither when she awaits one nor two. Said Rabbi Eliezer, if he can revoke the nedarim of a wife whom he acquired on his own, surely he can revoke the nedarim of a wife acquired for him by heaven. Said Rabbi Akiva to him, no, if you say this for a woman he acquired on his own, it is because others have no rights to her. Shall you say this for a woman acquired by him by heaven, to whom others do have rights? Said Rabbi Yeshua to him, Akiva, your words apply when there are two Yavavim. What do you answer when there is one Yavam? He said to him, the Yavama is not a complete as complete a wife to the Yavam as a betrothed woman is a complete wife to her husband. One who says to his wife, all the nedarim which you shall make from now until I return from such and such a place are confirmed. He said nothing, but if he says they shall be revoked, if Eliezer says they are revoked, the sages, however, say they are not revoked. Said Rabbi Eliezer, if he can revoke the nedarim which are already binding, should he not be able to revoke the nedarim which are not yet binding? They said to him, if it says the husband can confirm it and let our husband revoke it.
No, they haven't finished the sentence, yeah.
Yeah, right. Can revoke it. That which he can confirm can be revoked, and that which cannot be confirmed, he cannot be revoked. Okay.
Vamos.
One who cohabitates with his yavama, whether mistakenly or wantonly, whether coerced or willingly, even if he was mistaken and she was wanton, or if he was wanton and she was mistaken, for he can coerce her but was not, or she was coerced but he was not, whether the union was only partial or complete, he has acquitted her. There is no distinction between the forms of cohabitation. Similarly, if one cohabitates with any of the other arares forbidden in the Torah, or those disqualified from marriage, for example, a widow to a Kohen, a divorcee, a kalutza to an ordinary Kohen, a mamzeres, a Nisanite to a Yisrael, or the daughter of a Yisrael to a mamzer, in Nisanite, he has disqualified her. There is no distinction between the forms of cohabitation. A widow who is married to a Kohen Gadol, or a divorcee or kalutza who was married to an ordinary Kohen, even if they were only betrothed, they may not eat truma. But Elazar and Shimon, however, validated, and if they were widowed or divorced. If it was from marriage, they are disqualified, but if from betrothal, they are qualified.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. All right. Shabbos, Beit Gimel. We may not light with any product of a tree except flax, and no tree product can contract tumor contamination from sheltering a contaminated object except flax. A wick made from a cloth that one twisted but did not singe, Rabbi Eliezer says it's susceptible to tumor contamination, and we may not light with it. Rabbi Akiva says it is not susceptible to tumor contamination, and we may light with it. Fourth one. One may, that's right, okay. I'm sorry, one may not pierce an eggshell, fill it with oil and put it over the mouth of a lamb so the oil will drip, even if it is the container is an earthenware. But Rabbi Yehuda permits this. This, however, if the potter attached it originally, no, did I make a mistake? Oh, but Rabbi Yehuda permits this. However, if the potter attached it originally, it is permitted because it is a single vessel. One may not fill a bowl with oil, put it beside a lamp, and put the end of the wick into it, the bowl, so that it will draw oil, but Rabbi Yehuda permits this. One who extinguishes a lamp because he fears idolaters, because of bandits, because of melancholy, or because a sick person may fall asleep is exempt. But if he does so to spare the lamp, to spare the oil, to spare the sick, he is liable. Rabbi Yossi exempts in all of these cases except that of the wick because he makes it into charcoal. Okay. Yudalad. A person who is tahor in regard to mekatos who touched an oven. If he touched it with his hand, he is tameh. If he touched it with his foot, he is tahor. If he was standing on top of the oven and stretched his hand outside the airspace of the oven with the flask in it, and similarly, if a pole is placed on top of the oven and there are two jugs, one on one side and one on the other side, the Rekiva declares the contents of the flask and jug tahor, and the sages declare the contents of the flask tameh. If he was standing outside the airspace of an oven and stretched his hand to a window, took the flask and passed it over the top of the ovens, the Rekiva declares a tameh and the sages declare a tahor. But this person who is tahor for katos may stand on top of the oven with an empty vessel, that is tahor for katos in his hand, or with a utensil filled with water that is not sanctified. If a flask of mekatos touch a flask of sacrificial food or of truma, the flask of mekatos is rendered tameh, whereas the flask of sacrificial food is truma is declared tahor. If both flasks are in both two hands, both of them are rendered tameh. If both flasks are wrapped in separate papers, both are tahor. If the flask of mekatos is wrapped in paper and the flask of truma is placed directly in his hand, both are rendered tameh. If the flask of truma is wrapped in paper and the flask of mekatos is directly in his hand, both of them are tahor. Now, Rabbi Yehuda says the flask of mekatos is rendered tameh. If the flask placed on the ground and you touch them, the flask of mekatos is tameh, whereas the flask of sacrificial foods or of truma is tahor. If he caused them to move, Rabbi Yehuda says declares a tameh, and the sages declare a tahor. Okay. And the if it's splattered from the neck of the offering onto the cloth, it does not require washing. From the horn of the altar or from the base of the altar, it does not require washing. If it's spilled onto the floor and he gathered it up, it does not require washing. Washing is not required except for blood, which was received in a vessel and was fit for sprinkling. If splattered on a hide, if this happens before it has been flayed, it does not require washing. But if it happened after being flayed, it requires washing. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Eliezer says everything, even after it has been flayed, it does not require washing. Washing is required only for the place of the blood and for a thing which is fit to be susceptible to tumor contamination and which is fit for washing. Cloth, sackcloth, and hide all require washing in a place. The breaking of the earthenware vessel must take place in a holy place, and the purging and rinsing of a copper vessel may take place in a holy place. This is the stringency of the katos offering over most holy offerings. If the cloth garment was taken outside the curtains, he should re-enter it with it and wash it in a holy place. If it was contaminated with tumor outside the curtains, he should rip it up and then re-enter and wash it in a holy place. If the earthenware vessel was taken outside the curtains, he should re-enter with it and take it in a holy place. If it was contaminated with tumor outside the curtains, he should puncture it and then re-enter it and break it into a holy place.
That's three. The idea over here is that first of all, you've got conflicting problems. First of all, the washing or the breaking of the because earthenware vessels would have to be broken that have absorbed from a chatas. So they have to be broken inside the kodesh so that they're not used again. But that's kind of a ritual obligation that has to be done inside the kodesh. But if it was taken out and became tameh, then you've got a conflicting thing that you're not allowed to bring tameh things into the kodesh area. So what are you going to do? You have to bring it back inside, but you're not allowed to bring it back inside. So what the Mishna is giving is an eitzah of how to make the things, how to get rid of the tumah without removing the shem kli from the vessel, without removing the obligation to break it. So it's like if you make a hole in the kli, it's no longer a kli and it loses its tumah. As we according to all the principles that we learn in Maseches Kelim, when does a kli cheres lose its tumah? Okay, similarly with the cloth. if cloth was, got a blood stain from a chatas, and it was taken out and became tame, so you got to tear it into small strips that can't contain tumor, then bring it back in and wash it, because even though it's you still got to fulfill the obligation of washing it in the Kodesh. Okay.
And
And
this has nothing to do with the fact when you Chas v'shalom had to go to a levaya at Eretz Chaim. When they start to leave the building, they usually break some pottery. Did you ever see that?
seen that, no. But that's nothing to do with it. This is talking about stuff that's in the mikdash. We're in Kodshim over here. There's nothing to do with
The head person, I forget his name. He's very tall and gray beard. So he always breaks some pottery as he's walking. He stands up. I don't know what that has to do with. But, all right.
Okay.
Have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. You're going to be free. All right.
Yes. Bye.